Let's bring you more updates now from the UN Climate Change Summit in Egypt. Now at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, global experts from the natural and social sciences have launched 10 essential insights into climate change since 2021. The report, titled 10 New Insights in Climate Science, presents key insights from the latest climate change-related research this year and responds to clear calls for policy guidance during this climate-critical decade. A key focus was on the limits of humankind to adapt to the inevitable impacts of climate change, which include ever more frequent and severe droughts, storms, and floods. And speaking to reporters, UNFCCC Executive Secretary Simon Still said, quote, "Adaptation actions cannot substitute for ambitious mitigation."
Your first insight says adaptation actions cannot substitute for ambitious mitigation. Adaptation and mitigation action exists in an inverse relationship. The less we mitigate, the more we have to adapt.
The major challenge in the health sector is the lack of investment. Under the UNFCCC adaptation funds, less than half of 1% goes to health. We're not going to be able to achieve the goals that we would like to achieve without ensuring we have the investments in adaptation, mitigation, and resilience.
In the meantime, reactions have continued to trail the revelation that 636 fossil fuel lobbyists registered to attend the United Nations Climate Change Conference holding in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. These lobbyists are said to be affiliated with some of the world's biggest polluting oil and gas giants. The figure, quoted from official records from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, shows an increase of over 25% from COP26. A statement from Corporate Accountability noted that this indicates a rise in the influence of the fossil fuel industry at the climate talks that are already rife with accusation of civil society censorship and corporate influence. And Naima Helen is the Africa Climate Campaign Director for Corporate Accountability. She joins me live from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, for more perspective on this issue. Good to have you join us, Naima.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Quite an extensive report. I read it, and it's quite also very, in a way, disturbing, because this is supposed to be a place where decisions are made towards the mitigation of climate change. What's your thoughts on this, and how does the presence, or how will the presence of the fossil fuel industry affect the outcomes of COP27?
I mean, it's appalling, but also not surprising. You see, UNFCCC lacks proper measures on how to keep out such polluters out of these talks. You know, there are no proper measures, there's no conflict of interest policy. Anybody who has interest in anything can come here. You know, some people have called it short of a marketplace. And so many of us are not surprised about what is happening. And, you know, looking at how the talks are going, even, you know, recently, 3 days into the talk, we saw the African Climate Market Initiative being launched, and the hand of the fossil fuel industries and the big polluters is definitely into this. What this initiative basically is saying that they want to do carbon markets and offsets, meaning that they'll continue polluting and having business as usual and offsetting their carbon emissions through African governments that pollute less. Of course, this is not a real solution. You cannot sell carbon or air from one part of the world to another. What needs to happen is real solutions. They need global North governments need to reduce emissions at source. But, you know, having these lobbyists moving around the corridors of UNFCCC with very few activists, and even those where they are being gagged from talking, is really disturbing, but again, not surprising. So we're doing the best we can as activists that are here on the ground and demanding to the UNFCCC that they do need to keep big polluters out. We're demanding that they have an accountability framework to exclude such organizations and individuals that have vested interests. And, you know, just seeing from the last COP what happened, their involvement in COP, we took an initiative with several of our African partners, including Corporate Accountability and Public Participation that is based in Nigeria, to do a frontline community report, which basically documents the plight of frontline communities in several African countries, to remind our governments who are here what is actually happening back home so that they don't get into business with these industries. But it's unfortunate that some of them are getting into that fishnet, and we're seeing things like the carbon market initiatives. God knows what else is going to come out of this.
But over and over again, we hear some activists or some people, analysts, just say, look, these polluters have to be in the room where, the conversation is being had. And because most of these decisions being made have to do with them, so they have to be present in a room, but they are not present in the room. Instead, they send their lobbyists. Now, what are the chances that these industry lobbyists will influence what the delegates are trying to advance at COP27?
Like I said, we're already seeing the outcomes of what is coming out of this. If you see things like this carbon market initiatives being launched, you're sure that they have a hand in it. And these are the same lobbyists and the same global north governments that have refused to pay their historical debt to global south governments, that have refused to honor their financial obligations. And so they have found a way of commodifying carbon and convincing African governments that if you sell us your carbon credits, then you'll make money out of this, which is not only a real solution, but is also not financially viable. I think the last time I checked in the World Bank markets, a ton of carbon is $5. Imagine how much they produce with a ton of carbon and how much they want to sell to African governments. Let's look at it in a financial sense. It's not going to make any sense, but this is what they're doing right now. And it's very disturbing that, that's how the process is going, and the world is, watching, and, it's sad. Our future is really at question with such people waltzing in the corridors of the UNFCCC.
Absolutely. And Neema, one of the things that I found really interesting about this report is, for me, it was quite captivating, which is the fact that the number of lobbyists at COP27 is way more than the African delegation all put together, and this event is holding in Africa, and that was for me really, really interesting. Does that for you show, because it can be viewed two ways, and I want to ask you how you see this. Does that mean that the African continent isn't taking this seriously, or does that mean that the polluters have enough money to throw at this, and so this looks like a problem that we will deal with in a really long time? How do you view this?
Polluters are basically bankrolling this whole process. Like I said, if you were at Sharm el-Sheikh, you'll see a marketplace, where governments, and especially global south governments, are just making deals with these people. They have the money, they have the power, and it's quite unfortunate that they are the majority of people here. The UNFCCC really has to put their foot down and come up with an accountability framework. That is something that is very important. If you look at other frameworks, like, for example, the Tobacco Control Framework, the United Nations Framework on Tobacco Control, they have a policy on Article 5.3 that clearly kicks out the tobacco industry for being part of the negotiations. But in UNFCCC, we do not have that. And, a friend of mine made me laugh the other day. Like, you cannot invite the arsonist that put your house on fire to come and help you put it out. But that's in instance what is happening in the UNFCCC at COP. And that is sad, There needs to be a framework, like many other UN conventions that do have frameworks that have a conflict of interest aspect to it. UNFCCC needs to take this very seriously. Otherwise, we're going to have watered down climate ambitions, watered down climate actions, and watered down climate policies. And we already do have one as we speak, the Paris Agreement. So it's sad, but it's not too late. I'm very happy that for the most part, the climate activists are actually building power, even as we're here, and calling out UNFCCC, calling out governments, calling out the big polluters that are making this process unbearable and destroying our world. So most we have is power among ourselves, and people always win. So people power is what we're pushing for, while praying and hoping and demanding the UNFCCC looks at it as we're seeing it.
And we understand that this lobbies came in from 29 different countries. UAE and Russia have the highest number of lobbyists, according to the reports. Does this also give you a bigger picture as to what really plays out in these different countries? Why we're not seeing action and commitments made at the different COPs that we've had so far, that perhaps beyond just being part of this conference, these lobbyists are also working hard to ensure that these commitments, there is no action on these commitments?
Definitely. I mean, if there's any action on any commitment, then it means that they're making losses. These corporations are here to make money. They've not come to see any measures being implemented. So they will do all they can to water down and suppress any real action that is coming out of this place, definitely.
Thank you so much for talking to us. We'll continue to watch out for the outcomes of COP27, the commitments and the action that will follow the commitments. Neema Helen, African Climate Campaign Director of Corporate Accountability. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me.